Okay, watch my other video because for some reason it's not letting me comment part 2 or link it, so I am sorry guys. So it's literally the one right before this. In that video we went over Articles 1 through 7 in the Declaration of Human Rights and how adoption violates, the adoption legal process violates adoptees' human rights. We're going to continue on because we have many more articles to cover specifically, alright? So, Article 8. Everyone has the right to an effective remedy by the competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted him by the Constitution or by law. The United States Supreme Court has repeatedly denied certiorari to hear class actions by adoptees in the 1970s. In the cases of ALMA, ALMA Society versus Mellon, and Yesterday's Children versus Kennedy, and by adoption-affected persons in 1990 in Carangelo versus O'Neill, State of Connecticut, which challenged the constitutionality of adoption itself and fundamental rights of persons impacted by adoption. Attorneys said they believe the Supreme Court is not ready to hear such issues, and perhaps because if the court decides the practice unconstitutional, all past adoptions could be deemed null and void. I do also want to note that more than half of the Supreme Court judges continuously have been either guardians or adoptive parents, and still are. So it's, in that sense, is problematic because they refuse to listen to it. But that being said, Article 10. Everyone is entitled to full equality to a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal in the determination of his rights and obligations and of any criminal charges against him. Child Protective Services exercises its police power when removing children from their families based on suspicion of abuse or neglect, often arising from anonymous phone tips. The burden is then upon the parents to prove their fitness to parent, usually not before a jury, while authorities retain possession of the children. The adoptee usually is not physically present in the court for any proceedings leading to his or her placement and adoption. They may or may not have a guardian ad litem appointed, but no public jury trial would be permitted in any case, and the proceedings are sealed from public scrutiny as confidential. Relinquishment of a child is separate from adoption of that child. Parents of voluntarily relinquishment children are usually not permitted to participate in a hearing on a petition to adopt the child. Adult adoptees are referred to the juvenile court or adoption court regarding their grievances and for court records to release their adoption decrees, birth record, adoption record, and even access to the hospital medical record of their birth. Parents and adoptees may request an administrative fair hearing if certain criteria are met, but administrative hearings are neither impartial nor fair, since public and private adoption agencies are pretty much self-regulating, self-policing, and self-serving. Article 12. No one shall be subject to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has a right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. Coerced relinquishment of parental rights for purpose of procuring children for adoption has been ultimate government interference into the family. Article 15. Everyone has the right to a nationality. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality, nor denied the right to change his nationality. Over the past several decades, most adoptees have been deprived of knowledge of their true nationalities, and even of their true race or multiracial backgrounds. Article 16. The family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state. Article 16 also stresses the right to marry and to found a family. But in recent years, more American families have been non-traditional, that is, single-parent families. Today, 51% of Americans are married per release of the 2010 census, but since 1996, only 16% of children placed for adoption have been placed in two-parent households, as compared to 25% of children raised by two parents in the general population. And that was according to the 2001 release of U.S. Census study, Living in Arrangements of Children, Fall 1996, by Jason Fields. Article 18. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. The objective of the largest, best funded, and most powerful lobby of adoption agencies, the federally and privately funded National Council for Adoption, NSFA, is to Christianize children through adoption into Christian families. Federal funding of religious endeavors is a violation of the principle of separation of church and state. By the way, Christianity is not the only religion that has adoption agencies. They do have the most, but there are some Jewish adoption agencies out there. So I do want to make that clear. I don't know of any other religion that has adoption agencies, but I do know of that. And this book does cover the religion, so. Okay, continuing on. Where were we? Article 28. Everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. No one may be compelled to belong to an association. Adoptees are prohibited by law and practice from freedom of association with their own families and are instead compelled to form a lifelong association with strangers. We cannot be emancipated. Now, we can go no contact, but we are forever legally associated unless we are readopted. We can't annul the adoption, but we can readopt it. It doesn't make sense. All right. Article 20, sorry, I said 28. That was Article 20. I'm going to correct myself. Article 25. Everyone has the right to standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, necessary social services. Motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. All children, whether born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protection. In America, funding and support for the vilified quote-unquote welfare mom has been plundered, and instead benefits are diverted to the subsidized adopter. So not only that, but like foster parents get subsidies. If you are dealing with foster care as a biological parent, often you have to pay that money back, so you're being put into worse situations, and it makes it harder to get your child back. Majority of what they consider neglect is not actual neglect, but classism, and instead of giving them the help that they need and access to funding, they're giving it to the foster parents. Okay, and then the last one, and it was cut off here, but you can look up the Declaration of Human Rights, is the right to personhood and the degradation of person. The issue of personhood, through knowledge of one's true identity, origins, and biological connectedness, has become the primary issue for most adoption reform activists. Children's right advocates argue for the right of a child to a safe, permanent home. But why forever strip the child and adult adoptee of their true identity, aka the degradation of their personhood, in exchange for care in childhood? Should adoption as its practice in America be abolished? Now, that is just a question. That was what's written here. I have my own thoughts and opinions, but I'm not going to state them right now. So, here's the book. It's called Chosen Children, and it's by Lori Carangelo, and go see part 1.